What is up, Impact? Hey, Pastor Matt here. Thank you guys for tuning in for another Impact Sunday morning. It is going to be a great day. If you're watching this, I'm actually not here. I am up at the river. I am fishing, having a blast for my birthday trip. But I just want to say, in the meantime, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching this video as we finish up our Allegiance series. But before we finish up, I got a couple announcements for you. First announcement, oh man, I'm in the Student Center lobby and I can say that we miss you. We are getting some news on when we're going to be joining back up, when we're going to be coming in. And I promise you, as soon as we know the exact specifics of it, we will be making that announcement to you guys as well. So for those of you guys who continue to text and call, I'm grateful for it. I love hearing your voice. I love getting to connect with you. But I don't exactly have the perfect answer right now, and we will be giving that to you ASAP. But knowing that we will be coming back, in the meantime, for summer, we're going to be doing some cool kickbacks, some hangouts, some time together, still socially distancing and all of that stuff. We want to make sure that everyone's safe, but we're going to be doing some cool kickbacks coming up, so stay tuned for that. All right, announcement number 2. Hey, I am actually currently on vacation. So if you're watching this, I filmed this while I was in the Student Center lobby. But as of this moment right now, Sunday morning, I am actually up at the river fishing. You guys have already heard that in the intro. But with that being said, I want you guys to know that there is no Impact this week, this Wednesday, this Friday. There's no Zoom calls going on. We love you. We miss you. But also, hey, because there's no Zoom this week, I'm turning 30, so it's kind of a cool time. But I like to celebrate with people, so on June 8th, that Wednesday, I'm going to be giving away a ton of gift cards. So make sure you invite your friends. Make sure you guys join us on June 8th for our Zoom call. If you guys need the link for the login information, make sure you guys shoot me an email, hilltopmatt@comcast.net. I'll make sure I get it to you before June 8th. I can't wait to see you guys and give some stuff away June 8th. See you then. All right, hey, we're going to be diving in, but before we do, I just want to go over a real quick recap. Over the last couple weeks, we've been going over this term called allegiance. And I'm just going to do a quick recap for those of you who haven't joined us, or just for a refresher for those of you guys who might want to hear it. We've been talking about how allegiance, especially as a Christian, it's about representation. First, it's about representation. Second, it's about commitment. And third, it's about action. The first week when we were talking about it, we talked about how we need to be representatives of Christ, and how as a Christian, that really means that we're taking on Jesus and we're representing him everywhere we go and with everything that we do. The next thing that we talked about is that, man, our commitment should be first and foremost Jesus. Above any other commitment that we have as a Christ follower, if we're truly giving our allegiance to Jesus, man, we are committed to him above anything and everything else. It supersedes everything else. And then the last thing, the third thing that we talked about in week number 1, was that our walk with God is more than a decision. It's really about dedication. And with that dedication is about action. It's about living out our faith, not just talking about it, but actually living it out. True dedication, 100%. See, the idea behind this is that we should all have allegiance to Jesus above everything, above all else. And we need to have allegiance to a couple different things we talked about in our second week. And the first thing that we talked about is that we need to have allegiance to Jesus, first and foremost, above all else. In week 2, the second thing that we talked about is that we should have allegiance to our church. And I told you guys, don't get it misconstrued, don't get it misinterpreted. But what I meant was, where God has planted you, man, thrive there. Live out the purpose that he has for you, because he has a purpose for where he planted you. And if he removes you and brings you somewhere else, awesome, I'm glad. But in the meantime, we are meant to be the church. And where God has planted you, man, give your allegiance to it. It's not like my church or this church or that church or that church. No, it's really just choosing to be a part of the church where God has set you to be into. The third thing that we talked about in week 2 of our Allegiance series is that we should have allegiance to godly influences. And that means giving way to the men and women, the people who we love, the people who want to pour into us and literally want to influence us in the ways that God has for us. That's what we went over for week 2. Man, I love you guys. I'm so excited. That's your quick recap. We're going to dive into this week's message on allegiance. All right, now before we dive in, real quick introduction to this week's message. Today we're going to be talking about what's different about our allegiance to Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. We talked about in the weeks previous, man, we give our allegiance to Raiders, to Niners, to the Oakland A's, to the San Francisco Giants, to medium rare steak or medium steak. We give our allegiance to so many different things, But our allegiance as Christ followers to Jesus is totally different. And we're going to be talking about some of those differences in our allegiance towards Jesus, and acknowledging that it is different than, man, being a Raider fan or a Niner fan or anything else, or being a friend to somebody or not a friend to somebody else. All of this, it's so different how we give our allegiance to, and we're going to be looking at some of those differences today. All right, the first thing that we're going to be talking about in terms of allegiance, our allegiance to Jesus and how it's different than anything else, is the first one is, number one, allegiance is sacrifice. It's sacrificial. We as Christians, man, it is all about sacrifice. When we give our allegiance to Jesus, it's different. If I'm a 49er fan, I'm not really sacrificing anything, right? I'm not really giving anything up. Or if I like my meat a certain way, or if I'm an Oakland A's fan, or if I want to have these friends and not those friends or anything else like that. We're not really sacrificing anything. But as a Christ follower and giving our allegiance to Jesus, there is an element of sacrifice there. Hebrews chapter 13, verses 15 through 16 says, "Therefore let us offer through Jesus a continual sacrifice of praise to God, proclaiming our allegiance to his name. And don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are the sacrifices that please God." Did you catch that? These are the sacrifices that please God. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. But I want you guys to hear me, is when we say yes to God, it means that we also say no to a lot of other things. We're choosing to give up, to lay them down. It's part of picking up our cross and following Jesus. It's choosing to let go certain things. And that's a sacrifice in which we're making. Saying no, it's a sacrifice, because we as sinners, we want to gratify our flesh. We never want to say no to the things that we want, or the things that we feel, or anything of that nature. We never want to say no to self. But when we choose to give our allegiance to Jesus, there's a sacrifice that has to be made there. There's a time and a place where we have to say no. See, this verse in Hebrews, it's saying that sacrifice and praise are intertwined. And that's incredible. Submitting our will to God and saying no to what the world has for us, it's a sacrifice, but it's also a way of praise. Submitting our will to God and saying no to these things, and not giving into our fleshly desires or what pops into our head or anything of the sense. It's not only a sacrifice, but it's praising God. It's acknowledging him. It's giving our total allegiance. It's saying, God, I'm not going to give allegiance to myself. I'm going to give my allegiance to you. You're above everything else. And when we deny our flesh and we choose to be committed to God, it's not just sacrifice, it's worship to him. And that's what he desires for us. And when we give our allegiance to him, that's what we're choosing to do. All right, the first way that our allegiance is different as to a Christ follower, man, my allegiance is sacrifice. I'm choosing to say no to self. I'm choosing to say yes to Jesus. But the second way that our allegiance is different as a Christ follower is that our allegiance is tested. First, our allegiance is sacrifice. Second, our allegiance is tested. Listen, you can bet 100% that your allegiance will be tested. I got to be honest, man, even though there's Raiders fans that come up to me and they say, "How are you a Niners fan?" That's not really a test. You know, I just have a like, and that's just who I choose to support. My allegiance to them, it's not crazy, and it's not really tested in any way, shape, or form. But as a Christ follower, the promise is that our allegiance is going to be tested. Our allegiance to Jesus will be tested no matter what. The decisions that we make, and I want you to hear me, the decisions that we make reflect what we're committed to. The decisions that you and I make will reflect what we are committed to, or who our allegiance is towards. If we continue choosing to follow our flesh, then it is clear to everyone, including ourselves, that we are committed to our flesh. If our decisions lead to our flesh, it's a clear cut that we are led, and that we are that our allegiance is to our own flesh, our own body, our own self, our own selfish desires. It's easy to make a decision in a split moment, but our dedication as a Christ follower, man, that's what really matters. It's reflected in sacrifice. When we're dedicated to following God through sadness, through temptation, through hurt, and through anger, and through lust, man, God is glorified. When we are able to give God our whole heart, even through all those things, man, even that testing, that trial that comes, when we're able to do that, God is glorified. He is number one. You are praising him. You are honoring him. It is an amazing thing. It's easy to have allegiance to God when you're getting everything that you're praying for, when everything is great and all is well. It's easy to have allegiance to God. It's easy to say, yes, I'm a Christ follower, I'm a Christian. But it can be difficult when the testing comes. It can be difficult when we're not getting everything our way, when we want it, how we want it. But as Christ followers, man, we know our allegiance is going to be tested, but God receives all the glory and all the honor, all the praise when we step up through that testing and we continue to honor him and pledge our allegiance to him and live our life representing him to the fullest. Our true allegiance to God is when we stay dedicated even during difficulties and in the times of trial in our life. You can bet as a Christ follower, number one, your allegiance is going to be sacrificial. Man, there's sacrifice involved. Number two, your allegiance will be tested. When you don't get it your way, man, that's when it's most important to be praising God in the highest, giving glory and honor to him. It's different than any other allegiance because it's going to be tested. Point number three, the third way in which our allegiance is different as a Christ follower than anything else is that our allegiance is service. It is serving. It's a part of Jesus, his core, everything that we're meant to do. You know what? To be to give my allegiance to anything else of this world, I don't really have to serve anyone or everyone. I just give it. And in turn, it is what it is. But us as Christians, our allegiance is really defined in our service and how we love and serve others. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16, we went over it earlier in our passage, but verse 16 says, and don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. So we read the scripture and oftentimes we only think of the poor. We think it's talking about don't forget the good, don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. We have a tendency as humans to think about the poor. But the writer of Hebrews, he was discussing anyone with any need. As he's addressing Christ followers, he's not talking about just the poor. He's not talking about those who lack money, but he's talking about those who have a need. See, this can be elderly people. This can be someone going through a divorce or somebody who needs a friend or someone in your church who needs prayer. It could be a number of people. But what Hebrews chapter 13 verse 16 says is don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. Our allegiance is about service. See, the sacrifices that we make to help our brothers and our sisters in Christ, it's not only to glorify God, but it's also to please him, to make him happy. The serving that we do, the loving on others, it's not just glorifying God, but it also pleases God. It makes him happy. It's what we as Christ are called to do. And when we pledge our allegiance to Jesus, when we make him Lord of our life, and we say, God, I'm with you above all else, we have to understand that our allegiance is about serving, just like Jesus did. Jesus came to this planet and he served the Son of God, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one that every knee will bow down to and every tongue will confess to, came to serve. So my allegiance to Jesus, it's about serving. Allegiance to God is about sharing Jesus and being Jesus to whoever we come across and whoever we come in contact with. That's what it's about. It's sharing Jesus with them. It's serving others. And it's not always easy. See, every time we help someone, we're making a sacrifice. Every time we choose to enter into service and loving on someone when it's difficult and when trials come, it's not easy, but it's sacrificial in its service. When we buy someone's groceries or when we take someone to church, we have to make that drive or we have to make the ask. Mom, can we go pick someone up? Dad, can we go and drop somebody off? It's not easy all the time. Babysitting for a stressed out friend or somebody that we know and love, mowing our neighbor's lawn or volunteering at a homeless center. We're making a sacrifice and we're serving. Our allegiance is about sacrificing and it's about serving. Man, we need to understand that when we give allegiance to Jesus and we make him Lord over all else, man, our allegiance is really about serving. The sacrifices that we make and the serving that we do for others shows them, and it also shows others who Jesus is and who he is in our life, what placement he is in our life. Our allegiance leads others into a relationship with God, and equally important, it leads us into a deeper relationship with God. Allegiance is service. As we kind of end this series, I just want to remind you guys, man, these three things that's different as a Christ follower. Our allegiance is sacrifice. It's sacrificial. It's saying no to our flesh. It's saying no to some of the things. It's giving up some things so that we can pick up our cross and follow Jesus. And then it's also about service. Our allegiance is service. It's loving and serving others just like Jesus did. But our allegiance is also tested. And it means, man, there's going to be times where we don't want to do what we know we should do. It means that there's going to be times where we don't get what we want or what we think we want or what we say we want. And it's going to be trials and there's going to be sadness and there's going to be heartbreak. But it's in turn continuing on with our love, with our faith in Jesus and pushing on towards the goal that he has for us. See, allegiance at its core, it's all of these things that we've discussed over the last couple weeks. But most importantly, it's loving Jesus with all of our heart, all of our soul, and with all of our strength. Impact. As we go throughout this time, we're continually not meeting. I want to encourage you. I love you. Man, press into Jesus. Love him with all your heart. Love him with all your soul. Love him with all your strength. And watch and continue to pick up your cross and follow him. And understand what it means to make him number one in your life. I promise you, you will not regret it. I'm going to pray real quick and then we're going to jump out. Father, I love you. I thank you so much, God, again, that we're able to do this and Zoom and all the ways that we're able to connect. I thank you for the text and the phone calls. God, I just ask that you would bless our students, that you would bless our leaders, that you would lead them. And Father, that those who haven't made the decision to follow you, to make you number one, God, that they would know that there is a blessing in that. That God, it means that there's going to be sacrifice. It means that there's service involved. It means that there's testing as well. But God, it is so worth it. So God, I just pray that you will bless our leaders and our students. God, bless those who are watching this video. We love you. We thank you so much for what you're doing. God, you are number one in our lives. It's in Jesus' name, amen. Impact, I love you guys. I miss you. I can't wait to see you guys June 8th for the big Zoom call, the big Zoom night where we do lots of raffles and games. It's going to be awesome. I love you guys.